The middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu.
Somewhere Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems.
चुन चुन करके हिसाब लेना ये मेरी फितरत है.
Why should it be a problem if I'm smart enough to have multiple options? You should be admiring me.
भारत झुकने वाला भी नहीं.
The rise of India will be determined by India. It will be determined by our strength, not by the mistakes of others.
The old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to talk about how Iran became Israel's worst nightmare. And it's a very legitimate question because if you look into it historically even, Israel and Iran never had been in a direct war ever until now. Also, Iran and Israel don't share any border, any kind of border dispute or any such thing. Then how Iran can become Israel's worst nightmare, or how Iran can become pain in the rear of Israel? That's what we are going to talk about in this video. And when we are done with this video, I can assure you, you're going to understand why there was a regime change in Syria, why Israel is hitting Lebanon non-stop, why Israel went after Gaza and leveled it completely. And now, what exactly is going on with this whole thing? And what is the end of this war as well? Okay, so stay with me till the end. Let's get going. Let's get started. Okay, first of all, let me share my slide with you. Okay, there are some terminologies, key terms and acronyms. You can come back to the video and look into it. And now, let's get going. Okay. So first of all, there is a history to it, okay? That Iran doesn't share any border. Iran is a sanctioned country with aging air force. Everything is not in favor of Iran. But what exactly happened? See, what Iran has been doing over the period of these 40 years, after the 1979 revolution, what Iran did is that Iran increasingly isolated Iran was isolated from Western security system and Western financial system. So what Iran did is Iran has been using these opportunities over the period of time to its advantage. Okay. So for example, it started with Iran-Iraq war in 1980. 8 years of Iran-Iraq war after the Iranian Revolution and all that, it taught Iran one major and very important lesson. And the lesson was that today somebody who is your ally may not be your ally, and your ally may actually go and support your enemy too. Why? Because US used to be Iranian ally. In fact, lots of people say that 1979 revolution was caused by CIA because Reza Pahlavi also wanted to nationalize the oil and this and that. But CIA just wanted Reza to be more compliant. And they figured that Khamenei will be probably much more suited for this role rather than Reza Pahlavi family. But the reality is that Khamenei never was in support of US anyways from the get-go. Even before the revolution and after revolution, we already know what happened, right? So my theory on this is that actually it was the regime change in 1979 was organized or orchestrated by the Soviet Union. Why? Because Soviet Union figured that it will be a zero-sum game. Khamenei was not a very big fan of the communist regime or Soviet Union as such. But Soviets figured that if they support Khamenei, then it it only benefits them, even though Khamenei may not support Soviet Union. But one anti-US government in Iran creates a very good shield for Soviet Union. This way Soviet Union won't be surrounded by another enemy, because at that time Union was pretty much surrounded by all the hostile countries, you can say. Like China was there, then on this side Pakistan was there, then you had Azerbaijan, Armenia, all these countries, Georgia, all these. There was Soviet Union was just surrounded by all kinds of Western supported countries. Okay. Anyways, coming back to the point. So US actually supported Iraq, and that created a problem for Iran. The problem was that Iran learned that Iran cannot financially or militarily conventional means. Iran cannot fight a war this way. So Iran came up with this whole theory or say mechanism, or say the strategy of asymmetric warfare and the use of proxy forces. Iran basically, I would say Iran actually mastered this art, because if you look into it, then prior to 1980 and after, the Iran-Iraq war and all that, before that, everything was just conventional. Just let's ram into the battlefield and fight and see who wins, or whatever, right? But Iran changed this whole entire game. Why? Because Iran realized that they couldn't compete with Israel and United States conventionally, right? So anyways, now what happened is that second opportunity came. First opportunity was Iran-Iraq war. That taught them a lesson. Second opportunity was when Israel invaded Lebanon in 1982, which helped which helped create the conditions for Hezbollah. Now, I'm not saying that Iran actually created Hezbollah, but Iran definitely supported Hezbollah. Then came fall of Saddam Hussein in 2003, and which basically opened Iraq to Iranian influence. Then came the rise of ISIS, which basically strengthened Iran, because ISIS primarily had former Iraqi veterans, the army soldiers from Saddam's army. Okay, they shaped ISIS. They shaped and built the ISIS command structure. And while US was fighting ISIS, this gave Iran the window of opportunity to build its proxy war and supply chain. Okay, now again, I'm saying proxy war, then I'm talking about supply chain. What is going on? Supply chain, corridor, all that. And I promise you that my channel is always within the realm of the theme, the architecture of my channel. I never deviate from it. Okay. Anyways, stay with me. Now, then came the Syrian civil war. Okay, which began in 2011, around that. That was another turning point, which basically forced Iran to double down on protecting its regional foothold through Assad. Now, then you have Palestinian cause. Iran used the Palestinian cause to support Fatah, the group that is in Gaza. Then you have Hezbollah, Hamas, all these groups. So Palestinian cause was there that actually united all these, seemingly separate groups. And this gave, and then was the religion, of course. Religion gave Iran trusted networks. Khamenei was pretending to be a hardliner, say more so like a religious nut job and all that, only for this reason only. That Khamenei was, the reality is that Khamenei was not actually a religious nut job or jihadi or something like that, the way people say it. Khamenei basically became that because he had to create a trusted network that will increase Iranian influence in the region. And Palestinians, of course, gave Iran regional legitimacy that, hey, Iran supports us. When the reality is that even Palestinians don't support Palestinian cause for the sake of Palestinian cause. Everyone has their own interest in it, and that's why Palestine never became a reality. And I'll talk about that in another video, and I'll explain you the game behind it. Okay. So over the period of 4 decades, separate relationships that Iran built, it started to function as a one strategic system. And it was never actually officially declared or anything, but what Iran did is Iran started to use this whole entire network that Iran created to move weapons, money, fuel, commanders, technology, military pressure from Tehran to Israel's border, and to a certain extent, Iran's goal was to actually put its navy in Mediterranean too down the line. If I think that if it wasn't for this war, that was going to be Iran's next move. That you put navy in Cyprus or somewhere else, then guess what? You are already present there to counter Turkey and Israel at the same time. You are completely surrounding Israel at that point. So this whole entire network, it became Shia Crescent corridor, Shia Crescent trade corridor, you can call it. You can call it Shia Crescent corridor. Some call it Iranian corridor. And for decades, it became Israel's worst nightmare, or I would say pain in the neck. But the question really is that how this whole entire thing came into existence, and how Iran actually built the Shia Crescent. Let me share my slide and let's talk about it. Okay, so stay with me till the end. Okay, and please do like and subscribe. Now, how Iran built the Shia Crescent corridor. First of all, you have to understand the whole entire Shia network. Okay, now you can see my map here, right? On this map, I have everything, and let me actually open my pen real quick, and then you will understand. All right, now you can see you have Iran, and you have Iran. One second, sorry. All right, you have Iran, then you have all right. So right here, okay. So we have Iran. If you can look, 95% population is Shia. We have Iraq. We have 65% population Shia. Then you have Syria. Syria had only 13 to 15 otherwise Shia population, and that comes from Damascus. Okay, and then you have 27 to 45% Shia population in Lebanon. Okay, right there. Okay. And then if you look into it, you find that Kuwait has 20 to 25% Shia population. Bahrain has 65 to 75% Shia population. Qatar has 8 to 10% Shia population. Saudis have 10 to 15%. And 30 to 3 to 40% Eastern province, which is Yemen. Right here. Yemen has 35 to 40% Shia population. Okay. And now, so what exactly happened here? So Iran created a network that passed through 6 countries, and it formed a one system, that is Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine or Palestinian cause, you can say, and Yemen. These were 4 areas. Okay. And what Iran did, Iran supported these proxies. Which proxies? Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Houthis, then Fatah group is also in Hamas, in Gaza. Okay. And this is exactly what Iran did. Now, let me actually open the map and then show you even better. Okay. And you will see what I'm talking about here real quick. So now, if you look into this map right here, then what Iran was doing is that Iran had, from Tehran, it went to Baghdad, from Baghdad to Damascus, right there, this Syria, right? And then you have Lebanon. And also, there is one more interesting thing that you need to see is this. So what exactly they were doing is that through this network, they would come to Syria, and then they would come to this port right here, okay? And from this port, they would go to Tripoli in Lebanon. Okay, and from Lebanon they would go through tunnels. The all the help and everything else, it would go through tunnels. And if you look into it right here, so there is actually a between Israel and Lebanon somewhere around here. Okay, around the Litany River. Hold on a second. I am going to, this map is just weird. All right, so right here. Okay, so if you look into it, you find that somewhere around here there is a DMZ that was created. Okay, there were certain agreements and there was DMZ that was created. So what they were doing is that they would come from from Syria, that port, into Lebanon, and then from here they Hezbollah, Hamas, they would walk freely here, and then they would come here, and in this DMZ there are tunnels. Okay, that tunnels directly connected to Gaza. Okay, and that's how Gaza was getting all the help from the Iran. Okay, so I hope that is clear what exactly was going on. All right. And Iran used the local Shia population that I showed you in this map primarily to its advantage. Okay, then this whole thing, uh, yes, okay, once I'm just trying to organize this whole entire, because it's a very tough subject to actually explain. But so yeah, now once this was doing, when Iran was doing this thing, so all they were getting all this help here. Okay, from through the tunnels. All right, so they will come here, Lebanon, then from here to through the tunnels, and this was the primary reason. Okay, this was the primary reason. Okay? This was the primary reason why Syria had to be taken out. Why? Because Syria was becoming the whole entire hard zone. If you look into it, right, that they were using Syrian ports, Syrian land, and everything else during the Assad's regime. And where is Damascus? Right here. Okay, so everything, all the help from Iran that came, it went into Syria, then to Tartus, all this port from here, and it would go into this. And this is the primary reason why actually Syria regime change happened. How that happened, I can only speculate. I can tell you the most possible theory. Most possible theory is that in 2024, right before this whole thing was going to happen, during the BRICS Kazan summit, Erdogan, president of Turkey, he visited Kazan. He shook hands with Vladimir Putin. He was there for a few minutes or something. And then some explosion happens in Turkey. And Erdogan makes an excuse and uses that as an excuse to take off. And when he takes off, after that, turns out that Assad's regime has fallen. All the Assad supporting factions and everyone else, they all decided that, okay, they are not going to support Assad anymore. And Assad fled to Russia. And Russians said that, okay, we are done bombing and all that thing. Hasta la vista, baby Jesus. And they took off. Okay, all that good stuff happened. So I can only speculate that Turkey probably used its Black Sea entrance, which Turkey has been helping Russia with during the Russia-Ukraine war, by stopping by stopping the use of military force or naval vessels going through that thing. Turkey has pretty good influence in that region, in the Black Sea and in Mediterranean, that part. Okay, so anyways, so probably that happened. But anyways, coming back to the point, so this is how Iran was sending help to Hamas and Hezbollah and everybody else. Okay, so now you see why it took some time for me to explain you a little bit. Now the question really is that how Crescent became, that was a supply chain. Okay, but how Crescent became a pain in the neck. What exactly panicked Israel about this corridor. Yes, it was providing help to Gaza and Hezbollah and all that. That's fine. So, what exactly happened is this. Now, let me share my slide again. See, number one thing that happened is Lebanon, Hezbollah's missile and ground threat. It was five front for Israel, five front war. Then came Gaza. Gaza became a real problem. Okay, Gaza became a real problem for Israel for one reason. And that reason is that Hamas and Palestinian jihad that was there, Hamas and PIJ. And the most important thing was, can you guess what that was? You might have heard that there was a news that Israel has been hitting the children hospitals and everything else in Gaza, right? What is this? Okay. Has been hitting that. Now, let me tell you this. Gaza's military age population is 22 to 23% of the male of the total population of Gaza, which is 2.3 million, which makes it like around 450,000 males aged between 15 to 49. 450,000. That is pretty much that's a very large, I would say, recruitment base, and that is almost as big as Israeli army itself. Now think about it. Okay, military age population 450,000 strong. What do you think is going to happen? It was like a ticking time bomb from Israel, a disaster waiting to happen. Then came Syria, and Syria, I explained you that Syria was a transit for weapons, commanders, technology, and all that. Iraq was basically militias. They add depth and pressure because of the Shia alignment. Then you have Houthis, right? Yemen. Houthis threaten Israel and Red Sea shipping. And Saudis have been fighting it, but UAE is actually supporting certain factions over there in Yemen too. So that is why that's causing a rift between Saudis and UAE as well. Okay, now if you notice, just now recently, after the whole so-called MOU, the fake MOU, it fell apart. Yemen Houthis have started their campaign too. Saudis have just did some airstrikes and sorties over there, but ultimately that front is also open now. So Strait of Hormuz was locked in. Now what's going to happen is Houthis are threatening to block the Red Sea. Now you're getting the whole entire picture here. How this whole entire game was actually designed. And this whole entire network that Israel created. Okay, let me share my slide again. Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, Yemen, all these things. It's one network that actually proved that it works. If you implement this at a very large scale, just like what happened in Israel on 7th October, it can be done easy peasy. That's what Iran learned. Regional instability was Iran's strategic depth. Iran did not want to win the war. Iran was like, okay, you have sanctioned me for 40 years. Guess what? We are going to hit each and every financial hub that funds America's financial system. Iran figured this out. Okay, you have to understand the game here. Okay, it all goes back to where? Petrodollar system. The America's entire financial system is in the Middle East. This is why Middle East was very important for America for a very long time. And this is why now, because this whole entire region is becoming unstable, so everyone, in fact, lots of experts are saying that, okay, old order is gone and the whole entire dollar is gone, petrodollar system is going away. Why? Because Iran's network, this network that Iran has created, is dismantling that financial system. I can only imagine, okay, I can only imagine what's going to happen to the America's economy after this whole war is over. Trump is not worried because he's stuck in Iran war and this and that. No, Trump is not worried because of that. Trump is worried because of the aftermath of the war. Trump keeps saying that he's going to bomb Iran and this and that. They will destroy this, destroy that. I mean, Iran hasn't actually even shown full force yet. Okay. And Houthis and all, once they get and start to strike the real infrastructure, that's when the problem will begin. Now, I don't know if they will be if I don't know if Iran will be able to be, Iran will be very successful at this. I don't know. It all depends on how successful Iran is. Because I'm not on the ground over there, and not many people are, right? I'm only giving you based on what I know. Okay. And so that's the main concern. Trump's concern is not a few ships or something. Trump's concern is the aftermath of it. That if Iran really completely destroys Qatar, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, hits Saudi Aramco and all that, guess what? The entire financial system, America's entire financial system depends on this on the Middle East. And currency is not even gold backed. What do you expect to happen? So that's what has Trump worried, because Trump's primary agenda was what? Golden age of America. And nobody knows where that age is. Okay. But anyways, so let's move forward. All right. Now let me show you why the actual nightmare. Okay. Now I'm going to get into the actual crux of it. Okay. Let me share my slide first of all. Now you have to understand this map. This is the map of Syria here. Okay. Now in this thing, you notice that this is number 2 is ISIS core. And this is my own map. I created it. Okay. Now Aleppo, this is number 1. This is Iran backed. Okay. This is Iran backed. Okay. And this is Iran backed. Now you see this river right here, right? This is a river that comes from Iran, Iraq, and then Dar Azur. Dar Azur is a Syrian city, and this side it basically is controlled by Iran. This side of the river, the West Bank, I believe, and this is the Eastern Bank or something. Okay, and this was basically controlled by this Al-Raqqa and all that. This was controlled by US. Okay. And later on ISIS was kicked out, and this was actually controlled by US. Okay. Now, so why I'm telling you, I promise you there is a reason behind it. Okay. Now let's go into the actual map. One second. All right. Now let's go into the actual map. And then I will show you what exactly the game actually was. All right. Now, this is Iran. Now, what Iran was doing is that, let's look into this. Right. Go here. Okay. Now, you notice that this river that you see, the river bed, the Karbala, then Baghdad, from Baghdad, this whole thing, right? Rawa, Kam, Al-Baghdad, right there. This is a whole entire riverbed that goes all the way to the city of Dar Azur. Okay, this is what was being used to actually hide everything, to shield itself from anything. And this is not a very, actually, how do I say it? A very washed area. Okay, so this is what was used. This river was used to transport all the equipments, money, military hardware, and all the good stuff, you just name it. All right. And all that was being used. And then, if you notice, it was going where? It was going to Araka. This is why this became very important for Araka. And then from here, like this. Okay. And after that, one second. If you notice, then Aleppo, okay? So this whole entire network basically was using river, and then from here they were taking, they were going into Aleppo from here because this was Iranian control, so they had no reason to hide, okay? And then from here they would go into the Syrian port. Which port? They're all ports here, so they would take any port basically. Okay, let's just go with that. The Tartus, they took mainly Tartus, and then from here they would go to Tripoli. Okay, right here, like this. In Lebanon, they will enter Lebanon, and from here, all the help to Hamas, Hezbollah, everyone else was being provided. Okay, and that was the whole entire thing. That's why, I mean, Iran had created this whole entire corridor to provide help to Hezbollah, Hamas, and everyone else, to all its proxies, the way I showed you, right? And once again, let me share this real quick, okay? Now, and if you break this down, entire Syria into 4 quadrants, so you can see that what was Iran backed and what was not Iran backed. I mean, even though Syria was Sunni, but notice this whole entire thing was Iran backed, Iran backed, Iran backed all over. So how strong the network was in Syria itself. And this is why what was done, Syria, the regime change was organized with the help of Turkey. And because the Kurdish fighters, they were actually becoming problem for Turkey too. So Turkey figured that if this does not stop right away, then it will become a problem for Turkey. So that's why the whole entire thing was taken care of. And that was Turkey's interest. For Israel, Assad regime had to go because it was providing help to Iran all over. So when Assad was gone, that network, that the 4 quadrants that I showed you, the 3 quadrants were gone. Iran lost that whole entire network or the control over Syria. Okay, and Israel started to bomb Syria, Damascus, certain areas Israel was planning to take because of one thing, and that is very important to know. Okay, you might have heard that Israel was bombing Damascus. Hold on, let me share you my map here. Okay, Israel bombed Damascus right here. And Israel was trying to get around this whole thing, the Litany River. And Israel wanted to take the control of this Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is the only source of fresh water in that region. Okay, the 6-day war that happened with Israel, it was because of the water. You have to understand this. All right, now the big question, the $1 million, $1 trillion, multi-trillion-dollar question: how Israel broke the corridor. And I explained this to you already to an extent. Now let's look at the map here. Okay, once again, Iran, there are 6 networks primarily: Hamas, Hezbollah, Assad regime, Iraqi militia, PMF, Iran itself, and Houthis. Okay, now you might have heard Dr. Trump. You might have heard Dr. Trump saying that they asked some Iraqi Kurdish fighters and this and that to attack Iran from this side. But Iraqi militias are already there and nothing happened. Nobody did anything. Okay. So what happened? First of all, what Israel did is Israel took out this. The Assad regime was gone. Then they started to hammer Hezbollah in Lebanon. That's what they are doing. Okay. and Hamas, and then they have flattened the Hamas too. Okay, and Iraqi militias are still there. Iraqi militias never went against Iran, so this thing is still there. Iran itself is there, and now Iran has activated this final thing, final nail in the coffin. So what Houthis are doing is Houthis are now hitting this, and Houthis are saying that they are going to block this whole entire Red Sea. Now you see the game, how the game has become really, really interesting. Iran figured that they are going to be here from the get-go. Over the period of 40 years, Iran knew that when time comes, when push comes to shove, they will block this. They knew it. They knew that they just need enough firepower to block the Hormuz, and nobody can do anything about it after that. Okay, and they created Houthis. They figured that, of course, alternative will be Red Sea. So they figured that, all right, we will create Houthis, and Houthis are going to block this whole entire thing. Okay, and that was the whole idea. Now Houthis and Iran are doing exactly that. And what Iraqi militia PMF is doing, PMF is providing a shield from this side, so that so nothing comes from Syria or from Israel or somebody else through the land or anything. Okay, so PMF is basically providing that shield. That's why Dr. Trump is not able to find any way to do the foot on the ground invasion or something, because that's going to be very damaging, and that's what Iran wants. They thought that at first the whole idea was that, okay, let's go and take Bagram air base again, from which US was kicked out by Taliban. Just the whole plan was to take the Bagram, and then from Bagram continue the strike on Iran. Right now they have to use aircraft carrier, warships, and this and that, and certain bases in Saudi Arabia. Okay, which is not very effective way. But from Bagram, you can simply actually do foot on the ground and then enter Iran from this side. Okay, but Afghanistan or Taliban, let's say, Taliban simply denied it. And I explained what the game of Pakistan was. Pakistanis were involved by Saudis, so that Pakistanis can negotiate with Iran so that Irans don't bomb Saudis directly. Now, but I think that whole entire game is over, and the real thing is going to start. The real game of dismantling the whole entire economic system. If I don't know if Iran will be able to do it or not do it, but Dr. Trump's worry is that the aftermath of it. Okay, so now I'm not done yet. I'm almost done yet, but now let me show you something else. So I explained to you, like, that from Syria, how Israel did the regime change, how the regime change happened. At first, US wanted Turkey in there, that okay, let's put Turkey supporters, some fighters in there. But Israel was not happy about it. Israel doesn't want Turkey in there. Why? Because of whatever reasons. Turkey has its own agenda and this and that. And so this is why they went with Al-Nusra. It's just a rebranded Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda that actually did 9/11. US attacked Afghanistan, saying because of 9/11. And they kept talking about Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda. But at the end of the day, Taliban took over. I mean, you see the whole entire equation. Al-Qaeda is out of the picture at this point. Al-Qaeda rebranded itself, and now Al-Qaeda or Al-Nusra guy, he is the president of Syria. A very beautiful guy. That one. So, and this is the whole entire game that is going on in the Middle East, okay? And I already talked about the water escalation and all that, why Israel needs the Mount Hermon. Is simply one resource of fresh water. If Syria takes over, whoever controls Mount Hermon will control a major natural resource. That's why Israel wants to hit Lebanon so that it is closer to, as close as it can be to Mount Hermon. Hezbollah and all that is just an excuse for Israel. Israel wants to control Mount Hermon. That's the bottom line. Okay? Because if Israel controls the water, then Israel can actually control the regional politics as well. Along with the last thing that I'm going to talk about is Israel's economic endgame, and I have made a separate video on it too. You can go watch that video. I'll post it in the post the link below. Okay, but I'm just gonna, for the sake of saving time, I'm just gonna give you a very shortcut. Okay, the escalation chain. Let's look at the escalation chain. Escalation chain is regional pressure, Gulf retaliation, tankers will be hit, Hormuz will fall, and goes. Regional war stops being Israel versus Iran. It becomes regional economic crisis. That was the whole entire Iran's plan from the get-go, to create regional instability, so that if Iran is not prospering, then nobody else will prosper. That's the whole entire end game for Iran, and Israel knows this. And for Israel also, it is beneficial because the enemies of Iran are the enemies of Israel as well. Okay? So what Israel is doing is that Israel is simply using its enemy to take out its enemies. All right? Now, you remember in the beginning of the video, I said that Iran learned a very valuable lesson. The lesson was that today somebody is your ally, your so-called your ally may actually support your enemies. So right now, the allies of these Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and it looks like that Israel is somehow their ally. And US is somehow their ally. But after their economic destruction, which is happening right now by the day, in fact, the economic projections are pretty dim for Saudi Arabia, UAE, and all these countries for 2026. So, Israel and Iran, the way I'm seeing it is that eventually they're going to become the ally down the line. How that's going to happen? Through Abraham Accords, UAE, Iran, and Israel. Okay, and eventually what will happen is that the whole entire region will be controlled by Israel, Iran, India, and UAE through I2U2 framework. That's gonna happen eventually. Okay, so I have talked about the numbers and all that. I'm gonna not get into it, and I think this is it for this video, guys. This is gonna drag too far and I won't have anything more valuable to add, but I just wanted to explain you I've already done that. Please do like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in another video. Take care.